Testing. Testing. Okay. Welcome. And we pride ourselves in starting as close to 11 and finishing as close as possible at 12. And of course, afterwards, we have some time for you to come up and meet and greet the speakers. So welcome, and I hope all of you have a great Thanksgiving. And today we're welcoming Dolly Hintz and Stacy Brinkley, who are the speakers. And then Sarah Melvin, who is part of the Doorway organization. And then we have some famous people here. Kate Joppy, who's the daughter of Ann Benheim, whose family has been instrumental in serving the Doorways. And then Kathy Plotkin, who is a friend, great friend of so many of us in this room, and she has served on the board at the Doorways. So there's a great amount of loyalty to this. And as you know, the Doorways was co-founded by Dolly Hintz, and then Stacy Brinkley is the executive director. And Dolly, of course, is famous for the fact that she is a great volunteer. I can't tell you what committees she does not serve on, but she certainly was instrumental in getting our library into the 21st century. And then Sarah has had 20 years experience in this field. She went to college at Franklin and Marshall, where she got her BA in biology. Then she went on to Virginia and got an MBA at the Darden School. So we have some very attractive and great speakers who are coming up, and we'll start first with Dolly.
Thank you, Sally, and thank you for the focus group for having us all come here to speak and to tell our story. I'm very excited. I'll probably get very breathless because I get so excited about talking about the Doorways. It started in 1982. I was brand new to Richmond and decided to go and volunteer down at MCV. VCU Health, and became part of the auxiliary. And at the time, Mary Still, who some of you might have known because she lived here, she was the director of volunteer services at MCV. And she'd been there a long time. And some of us volunteers had noticed this as well. Sorry. That you would see people sleeping on couches, or you'd see them actually washing their faces or their clothes in the public restrooms. And it was determined that these were the relatives of the patients who had come to the hospital for treatment from out of town. Well, Mary thought this was not a good thing. She had heard about a hospitality house in Charlottesville. So she wondered if we could check that out, because their purpose was to house relatives of the patients. So my friend Jackie Nichols and I, who were on the auxiliary board, said, sure, we'll go check it out, which we did. And it was a very wonderful concept, but we weren't sure about this house thing. I mean, it was really somebody's house with bedrooms. So we went back to the auxiliary board, and we thought it'd be nice if we could find a building on campus. So we went to see the VCU president, Ed Ackle, at the time. And he said this building was open and available, the Ziegler House. It had been an old dormitory, but it hadn't been used for a long time. And he said, you can go look at it and you can see what you think. So we went to look at it. Perfect. It was 3 floors, had 8 bedrooms, big windows, but it was a mess. It was full of pigeon poop and you couldn't imagine. But Jackie and I were so excited. we knew we could make it work. So then we had to decide, well, how are we going to do this? Because Ed Apple said we could have it for $1 a year, but we had to raise $250,000 to renovate it. Well, the auxiliary had never raised more than $5,000 a year, a fundraiser, but we took it upon ourselves. My husband wrote this handwritten letter, and all the members of the auxiliary got their church lists, their club lists, all the people that they knew, and we sent letters to all these people and told them what we wanted to do. And then we had garage sales, we had bake sales, we did everything we could do to raise money. We finally had a dinner auction, which raised over $100,000. But the big thing that happened was Jackie and I were fortunate enough to have 2 husbands that worked for CSX. And they happened to be on the compensation committee. So they convinced them, we convinced them to ask them, and we got $50,000, which of course gave us legitimacy in the community that we could do this. So, long story short, fixed the building, got it perfectly, and then within a year, we moved in. And right away, it was full. And I have to say, to back up a little bit, we had an advisory board. Some of the administrators, several doctors, one of which was Dr. Kuntz. And some of you would know Warren Kuntz, who has just passed away. But he was on that board. We also had a gentleman who had a graphics company, and he made a slideshow for us. So that's what we took to all these clubs and groups to tell our story. So the house opened, and then, as I said, this is totally volunteers. We never had to pay anybody to do anything. The furniture was donated, 28 beds and mattresses by Mr. Korn, because he had connections with the furniture company. And then the Benheims came on the scene, Ann and Dick Benheim. And they told all their friends, and it was Dick's idea, don't send me a birthday card, send the money to the hospitality house. And of course that opened up so many doors for us. And then they continued to be active. And in fact, when we opened the hotel, they not only financed Christmas dinner, they would go serve it. And Shelley and Shirley Shapiro, Shirley lives here, they were involved as well. So it was just a wonderful community situation where so many people were involved. So we were successful. We had enough money to keep operating. But then things changed at the hospital. You know, people weren't staying anymore. They were in the hospital for a couple of days, and then they had to stick around for treatment. The other thing I failed to mention, he had to live 30 miles away. in order for the relative to stay. Well, as you know, MCV, VCU, has people that come from everywhere, not only all over Virginia, but all over the country and all over the world. So, what were they going to do when they had to come back for treatments, etc.? So we needed a bigger house because our house was dormitory style. You had 4 people living in a room. That wouldn't work. So we found out that the Days Inn was for sale. It was in foreclosure. We were also fortunate enough to have a very good lawyer on our advisory board, Jack Kenny. Ann Kenny now lives here. And he negotiated, along with some people from CSX, for us to purchase the building for $1 million. Wow. But, we did have a little bit of savings, and we had some very good people at the hospital and the MCV Foundation, and they helped us get enough money so we could purchase the hotel. 120 rooms. It's the same thing when we walked in there. It was a mess. But we knew we could do something about that as well. So, sure enough, we moved into the Days Inn, and that's a whole other story on all the wonderful things that have happened there since. And for that story, you're going to get Stacy.
Thank you all for having us. We are thrilled to be here, and we are thrilled that Dolly is still our biggest cheerleader at the Doorways, or the House, or HHH, or however you know it. We answer to everything. I'm going to just jump right in. These slides, this is what Dolly spoke to in terms of the history, in terms of 83, 84, 94, etc. We did rebrand in 2015 as the Doorways. Partly because, it was some HHH, or Hospital Hospitality House, was a mouthful, and no one really could say it, so it always went to the house. So I don't know if it's, better, but we're doing our best to make sure that it is well known as the house or HHH. As Dolly mentioned, it was initially the original Ziegler House was for the family members. But as medicine has changed, now about 47 to 50% of our rooms also contain the patient, because they're getting outpatient treatment, whether it's cancer treatments or they're a transplant patient, either pre or post. Our stem cell patients stay with us sometimes up to a year. So as she said, it was important to really move from that dormitory style to actual private rooms. So since the founding, since the fabulous work that Dolly and the auxiliary did, we have served over 205,000 guests, which is incredible, and provided more than 1.2 million nights of lodging. And we're obviously still going strong based on this strong foundation. Our guests come from across the state, literally every county, city in the state. About 80% of our guests come from Virginia. The other 20% come literally from all 50 states. We are so fortunate to have great health care here in Virginia, in Richmond, whether it's VCU Health, also the VA hospital sends patients to us. It's interesting when you think, when I first saw these numbers, that Hampton Roads was one of our biggest population areas, because I thought, gosh, there's so much great health care down there. Why are they coming to Richmond? Well, so much of it is specialty care now is done in larger cities, teaching hospitals, those types of things. So we see a lot from the Hampton Roads area as well as from Northern Virginia. Maybe they just don't want to fight into DC, but we get a lot, we really get guests from all over. And so these were some of the statistics. I know Dolly said originally 120. We currently have 117 rooms, having to make some rooms into some other spaces for housekeeping, etc. But we also have 6 extended stay suites, which we are very proud of and wish we had more. We took, especially for our stem cell patients who are so immune suppressed, and they need to be, as sterile as possible. So we took 2 rooms and made 1, so they have their own living room and full kitchen, so they can cook right in that same space. They can move around, again, if you're recovering or you're in treatment, the more you can move and do your own activities of daily living, get your own cup of coffee, get your own cup of tea, rather than having to, stay in your room and have someone bring it to you. Those rooms, the good news is they're always full. The bad news is we can never show anyone what they look like on a tour because they're always full. We're looking and working towards a new building, and when we were doing the programming for that, we wanted 55 extended stay suites. Not just for stem cell patients, but for all of our guests that stay longer than a month. So these are in big demand. 6.4 is the average length of stay at the Doorways, but we have a lot of 1 and 2 nighters coming for checkups or treatments or pre-surgery, and then we have guests that are with us up to a year, which again, I just can't even imagine being away from home and living in a small hotel room or even a 2-room suite for a year. On average, we have about 150 guests per night. A little less on the weekends because the people that are there 3, 4, 5 nights, those are during the week. But even on the weekends, it's probably over 100 of folks that just cannot go home. It costs about $50 a night for us to provide the services per guest, or about $100 a room. We ask only for a $15 a night donation from guests. But of our guests, especially our long-term guests, overall 53% can't afford the donation, which is totally fine. We don't, no one has to prove they can or can't afford it. If you say you can't, that's all good. That's what we're here for. It's just lovely to be able to see our mission on a daily basis. On the left-hand side, you can see we provide over 61,000 nights of lodging every year. Over 10,000 guests a year, over 180,000 meals served. We are fortunate that all of our food is donated through Feed More and direct store pickup, and we have fabulous community groups that come and make dinner, which we'll talk more about in a few slides. And overall, over 3,000, almost 3,500 volunteer hours every year. We couldn't do what we do without our fabulous volunteers. So yes, cancer and transplants make up about half of our guests, and then followed by trauma and cardiology. It is amazing and sad, I guess, that how many accidents happen on 95 that get airlifted to Richmond, and so you have families showing up that certainly were not expecting to stay in Richmond. They were just traveling through, and so I think they really appreciate the support of the Doorways at that critical time. As Dolly mentioned, all of our guests must live 30 miles away or further. The thought being, if you live closer, you would want to go home. If there's reasons you can't, we certainly take into account special circumstances, and especially, NICU babies and those types of things. So, we just monitor that closely. As I said, 79% are from Virginia and the other 21 from across the U.S. So 90% is VCU. They're our biggest referral partner and our biggest strategic partner, and the rest come from the VA hospital, World Pediatric, Sheltering Arms, and several smaller organizations. And when the Ziegler House opened, when the Hospitality House opened, it really was a nice thing to have, and really, as Dolly mentioned, as care moved to outpatient and we had the patients staying with us, we've really become a vital partner in providing that access to healthcare, health equities, so that folks that, again, live in rural areas or can't afford it, when they come to Richmond, they can afford to come because they can stay at the Doorways. These are some of the statistics we ask people when they check out, our sort of an impact survey. 78% of our guests are low income, but again, as I mentioned, we welcome all walks of life. Of our guests, 85% reported that we help them avoid financial distress. Again, you can imagine if you're away from home for weeks or months at a time. And 45% say that staying at the doorways helped them avoid foreclosure or eviction from their house. That's a pretty staggering number. The bottom number actually ranges anywhere from 34 to 45. In this snapshot, it was 34, but 34%, or over a third of our guests, say without being able to stay at the doorways, they would not have been able to access the health care they needed. And so that, again, just think about that for a second. You know, if you need something and you can't get it. And this is a quick video.
So I look on my phone and it's a FaceTime call with my daughter-in-law. And they were screaming on the other end of the phone. They were saying, "Mom, something's wrong." My daughter-in-law was diagnosed with ALL, which is a form of leukemia. And I said, "Well, that must be wrong. You're 26 years old. I live in Central Florida. I know when you start talking about cancer and lengthy stays, and if I'm spending that money, how am I going to help my children?" And a sweet lady at the hospital, she's a care coordinator, Amy, and she said, "We're going to try to set something up at a place called the Doorways for you." I really think people in this community really don't realize what this little building does. It's one small building that makes such an impact.
And that is one of our guests, Pam, and she was so gracious to tell her story. And there are so many more stories like that. When we changed the name to the Doorways, and between healing and home is our tagline, and we like to say behind every door is a story, and this is just one of the many. And, you know, again, all thanks to the leadership of Dolly and the auxiliary. It's now just the VCU Health Auxiliary. Back in the day, it was the Ladies Auxiliary, and it was all done by the women. Really quick. So what do we provide our guests? Everyone gets a private room and a bathroom, 24/7 access to kitchens, communal space, computers. We have home-cooked meals served by volunteers. And again, that is just a huge part of our program. Pre-COVID, we really had meals almost every night of the week. As you can imagine, the last thing you want to do when you come back from a long day at the hospital, 6, 7 o'clock, is worry about what's for dinner or having to order out. So to have those companies, community groups, churches there serving dinner is a huge help to our guests. There's a shuttle that goes back and forth to the hospital. I mean, we're within 5 blocks, so some people like to walk, but not on days like today, and not everyone can walk. We have Wi-Fi throughout the building, computers that people can use to keep their lives going, check their emails, even just continuing to try to work. A lot of times during the day at the Doorways, it's very quiet because everybody's at the hospital, but you'll see people that are either caregivers or even patients themselves trying to keep their businesses going, sitting in the dining room or in the family room on their computers. We are also fortunate to have 2 social workers. They're part-time, in the evenings, just during the week, and they're there from say 6 to 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. They're for our guests who just, might need an ear to vent or to help with paperwork or to get advice. We, of course, work very closely with the social workers at the hospital. We are not taking their place. They do the heavy lifting, but our folks are there just for that, in the evenings when you can't sleep or, you're worried about something. So they're fabulous. We had one recently retire. She had been with us over 20 years. In fact, we had celebrated, I think, her 20th anniversary, and then she said, "Oh, gosh, maybe it's time to retire." We're like, no. But we did find another young woman, actually relatively young, and she just stepped right in, and you would know that she hadn't been there forever. But really, even more importantly than all of the amenities, what people experience at the Doorways is a community that cares, a community that's going through something similar to what they're going through. We had one testimonial that said, "I just can't imagine having to leave the hospital and going back to a hotel room by myself." The loneliness and just not having that camaraderie of really everyone else in the building. Our dining room has multiple tables, and no matter how many times we spread them out, right, tables of 4, invariably in the middle there'll be a table of 6 or 8 or 12 because they all get together and talk. So we say the dining room is where the magic happens. The other place the magic happens is in the smoking room because you can't tell people that need to smoke that they, now that even though we're a non-smoking facility, that they can't smoke. So they have a little place to go, and there's a little community always out there as well, supporting each other. So again, it's just a lovely place to work and to see our mission in action every day. When we give this presentation, we are always looking for partners to volunteer, provide meals. We do provide care packages. They host Windex parties. I guess if you call anything a party, it sounds like fun. But we have all these exterior windows, exterior walkways, and those windows get pretty dirty, as you might imagine, in downtown Richmond. So it's a great team building event. Companies really enjoy it. They get we give them bottles of Windex and squeegees, and they go to town. And so it's just fun, especially on a really nice day. We have people that will come and provide entertainment in the evenings. We have a harpist, we have banjo players, we have just guitar players. We have people that host game nights. Bingo is very popular, especially if you have prizes. And so just to give people something else to do in the evening. And then companies or people can host a virtual collection drive. We have an Amazon wish list of all the things that we always need. I think last year we received over $30,000 in in-kind donations, which again helps us immensely with our budget. I think the next one is another video that gives you an overview.
I would describe it not only as a place where people can rest after they visit their family here at the hospital, but also a place where they, of course, can get now breakfast and lunch and dinner, and all of the staff are very friendly and they help people. They don't turn them away.
Well, if I had to describe it to someone, I would tell them that it's a place to come to rest and recuperate. Because when you leave the hospital, you're still sick. The doorway's being here, just 4 blocks from the hospital, is fantastic. I mean, I can walk there.
We enjoy the staff, they're very friendly, smiling all the time. They go beyond their job description and make sure you're comfortable here. We were here for the first time about 11 years ago. You're kind of nervous and you don't know what to expect, but it didn't take long for us to feel welcome and at home.
Doorways is known across the state of Virginia, and this I know because I talk to pastors across the state, and we always talk about what we're doing community-wise, and they say, Ricardo, I remember when it was Hospitality House and how friendly they were to my people back then before the name change, and I said the name change has not changed in terms of hospitality and a place for them to be safe and do what they need to do in order to visit their family.
My experience has been great. I've met a lot of people, a lot of patients that have gone through the same thing as me. You make friends, and you all celebrate when one of those friends is able to go home.
I thought it was a nice, nourishing place, and we felt relaxed and comfortable, just as my husband said, and I enjoyed the first feeling that I felt when I came in here.
Know that you got a place to come to, clean bed, a comfortable bed, a private space. It makes such a big difference being able to be right down the street from your doctors and your caregivers. I mean, I couldn't imagine anything else. I mean, it's unbelievable.
The staff here, they've like become family to us.
Yes, and we get positive feedback from a lot of people. We pray for each other. We just get to know each other and help each other around situations.
It's a home away from home, so whatever people need while they're here, it will be here.
This place is always in my prayer because, like I said, without this place, Lord knows where we would be.
So just a couple things to point out. Ricardo, who you saw at the beginning, was our volunteer of the year last year. He is a local pastor, and he does all of our food pickup from all the different grocery stores that donate. We could not do it without him. He is amazing. You also saw a glimpse of Dolly's garden. Dolly, you should tell the story. Dolly wanted a garden years ago, right? And she said it's the only time her husband told her no. She had grander visions of atriums and beautiful spaces, but it was going to be very expensive. And so 2019, it said it was founded. We were doing some other renovations, and we went back to Dolly and talked about the garden. And thanks to Dolly's generosity, she made that happen for us. And it is so well loved and enjoyed by our guests and by our staff. And that's another volunteer opportunity for people to help us garden, because that is not in my skill set. The other brief glimpse you might have seen was a bookcase or cases full of salt and pepper shakers. We have 5 of those cases and donated from the Bentheim family. And it's really a fun thing for our guests just to look and see. You could spend an hour looking at all the different types, and they're grouped by different areas. So it's just a really fun thing just to take your mind off of it when you're looking for something else to do. This is our mantra. When we rebranded, we really wanted a statement that talked about what we believe in, who we are. And we also have another video that talks to this, but we figured 2 videos was enough for y'all. But it's just how we live, and it's on our wall in the lobby. People love it. We all think about the different lines that we like. And Sarah always says, she is the chief philanthropy officer, her favorite line is, "We believe in generosity," which is good. But also, again, we believe that everyone needs help eventually, and that's what we're here to do. We, again, are so thrilled to be able to provide the services, the mission that we do, thanks to the forethought. I mean, who would have thought that one trip to Charlottesville could end up with an 8-story hotel? We are actually also looking for a new building at some point, hopefully in the future. We've had a few false starts. Our building was built in the 60s, so it's well past its prime, and we're having to spend a fair amount of money just maintaining it and keeping it up. Capital dollars that you wouldn't prefer not to spend, but obviously have to. So we have done a lot of work for a new building. So to go from 18 beds to hopefully soon over 145 rooms, 55 extended stay suites, 45 studios, and 45 standard rooms. When we can make that happen, that will just be, again, sort of the icing on the cake. As healthcare has changed, how do we better serve our patients, our guests? You saw samples of the rooms. They are clean, they are comfortable, but we are not the Ritz-Carlton. And never will be in the Old Days Inn, or originally the Downtowner, for those of you who were around Richmond in the 60s and 70s. But it's a great mission, it's a great place to work. We are thrilled to have Dolly still involved in helping us actually, negotiate down at the hospital. She sends Dr. Levy, the interim CEO of the health system, periodic notes to make sure he remembers us and knows that we need a new building. We couldn't do it without our volunteers. We couldn't do it without our donors. And of course, we have a fabulous staff. Our front desk agents and our housekeeping team, they're the front line. Our guests get to know them and really rely on them. We had one gentleman who, one of our, I think, housemen went on vacation, and when he came back, the guest was like, "Where have you been? I've been looking for you." And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was on vacation." So, they would talk every day. So you do notice when somebody is missing. But again, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sure Dolly would as well, or Sarah can help us. If there are questions, we'd be happy to take them.
I'll start off with one question. What's the interplay a little bit more with MCV/VCE Medical and y'all?
So they are they're our biggest referring partner, and they are a strategic partner. They do help fund us. They help provide some of our revenue, but we do still do a lot of fundraising in order to meet all of the needs. But they are a great partner. We talk to them, multiple times a year, trying to understand what trends they're seeing and how they might impact us. They have a new program called Hospital at Home, or at least that's what I call it, Home Hospital, where they can admit someone meets the criteria to be inpatient, but maybe not quite sick enough So they're considered admitted inpatient, but they actually are in their home, and they're monitored 24/7. A nurse comes multiple times a day, etc. Just whether it's, again, something not super critical. But they found that they had people, and they have to live within 25 miles of the hospital. And they were surprised to find that people that lived outside of that still wanted to come. So we're partnering with them when they have someone just a little bit too far away, or they're in a home in Richmond, maybe not ready to allow for medical treatment. So those types of things, they're looking to double their their liver transplant program. So how does that affect us? So we work with them and talk to them on a daily basis and have regular conversations with both the leadership and the care coordinators.
Well, I'm not sure it's a question, but I remember when I was on board that we used to be told that the Doorways was the second largest hospitality house in the nation, and it was the only one that is totally supported by donations.
She is correct. There are a lot of guest houses, if you will, or hospitality houses or hotels associated with some of the larger health institutions. You think of MD Anderson or Johns Hopkins. And most of them do not have the Doorways. They may have a hotel that is affiliated with them, and while the hotel may give you a discounted rate, so in New York, $129 a night sounds like a great deal if you're there for vacation. But if you need to be there, for 6 months or even 6 weeks, that adds up pretty quickly. And so we are the largest that operates on donations alone. We don't have a fee. It's not like it's a $39 a night or $49 a night rate. When we implemented the extended stay rooms, some folks said, well, should we charge more or ask for a larger donation? And we actually decided not to, just because, again, those are the folks that are long-term and the least likely to be able to afford it anyway. So it doesn't matter if you say it's $15 a night or $25 a night. If you can't pay, you can't pay. And so, again, some other organizations require you to prove you can't pay. We don't do any of that. Just, again, if it's beyond your means, then you just sign a waiver, and everything is fine. But yes, second largest in the country.
I'm fascinated with the amount of volunteers you have to have and what great numbers.
Yeah.
Tell us more about how you coordinate all that.
Well, we have a fabulous volunteer manager who is amazing. She's our newest one. She's been with us just about a year, right out of college. I mean, she's been amazing, jumped right in and keeps all the balls in the air. We could have volunteers during the day coming in. We have volunteers in the evening, on the weekends. They do, as I mentioned, everything from making and serving dinner, Windex parties, helping us. We get a lot of in-kind donations, helping us manage all of the food, what goes in, what goes out, how does this get stocked. We have a big walk-in refrigerator and freezer that's full of food for anyone who needs it, and a big pantry. So making sure all of that is stocked and current, again, and not expired. We have folks that help at the front desk. We have folks that help in development. So there are a lot of balls in the air, and we are so fortunate. We also this year have a partnership with Cristo Rey. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. It's this newest high school in Richmond that helps underserved populations and get through high school as sort of pre-college, when these kids may not be prepared for college. And part of their program is also a work study. So you get, companies actually donate and pay for this. We obviously did not, someone did it for us, but we have those students that are there Monday through Friday, one each day, that help do whatever needs to be done. So volunteers, we have over 500 of them every year, and they're amazing. We're a small staff. We have about 21 full-time people, much more than when they started, with 1 or 1.5, and about 12 part-time folks, because we're 24/7, 365. So most of our part-time folks are sitting at the front desk in the evenings or on the weekends, and a few part-time housekeepers just to supplement.
Besides Doorways and the Ronald McDonald House out of the VA, are there any other hospitality houses within a 50-mile radius?
So, yeah, good question. So, yeah, we do coordinate with the Ronald McDonald House. You know, they are very similar to us, much smaller, and they focus just on pediatric patients. We have a pediatric floor as well, and then really, you know, just we are a broader but similar mission. And then the Fisher House at the VA hospital, again, they're small. We actually serve, what did we just counted? Almost 900 veterans and their families last year. So we see a lot of the veterans. There is another smaller guest house in town, the Reinhardt House, which is associated with St. Mary's Bon Secours, right on Libby Avenue, and they're about 16 rooms, I think. And then there is a small, again, as Dolly mentioned, in Charlottesville, it's still very small, nowhere near what we have in Charlottesville.
Can you tell us anything about the future building or what you're doing to prepare for that move?
Yes, and so we were, I don't know if you follow sort of all of the activity, I'll say, downtown. You know, there was the Navy Hill project, which we were supposed to be a part of that whole development. We were very excited. And unfortunately, City Council did not approve it, and so the project died. And then the developer was working with VCU, the Ronald McDonald House, to revive and still work on what we called the Clay Street project, the old public safety building. Again, there was going to be the doorways, a new Ronald McDonald House, a office tower for VCU, a child care center for VCU, and then COVID hit, things changed, costs went up, needs changed. They wanted to change from office building to research. Anyway, long story short, if you read any of the paper, it's a bit of a mess. So that project is not going through. So we are actually still in close conversation with the health system because they're going to probably direct what goes on down there. We would love to be closer to the hospital. As we said, we're 4 to 5 blocks. Going to be lovely to be across the street for our guests. The health system also has a lot of needs. As you might imagine, they're out of space. They need a new bed tower. They need a new school of dentistry, a new pharmacy school. They need more research space. So they're actually working with a master space planning consultant currently. And so we are anxiously awaiting that report. We have been told and guaranteed, assured, I've used a lot of words, to make sure that we're part of that plan. So we expect to see some of those results and or recommendations this spring, sort of March, April timeframe. And so I think the good news is, again, VCU is an excellent partner. They understand how important we are to the health system and to their patients. They rely on patients really from across the state in order to fill their clinical trials, in order to keep their specialists busy. The Massey Cancer Center recently was awarded comprehensive status from NCI, which is a huge achievement, only one of 50, I think, in the country. And part of them, being able to do that and fill clinical trials is because of the doorways. And so the hospital definitely understands it. And so we need to figure out what's the best solution for us going forward and how do we get closer and or certainly no further away than where we are today. And how soon can we make it happen? So I've been saying now for probably 2 years that we needed to be in a new building in 3 to 5 years. Again, I'm still hoping 3 to 5 years. It's just a little delayed, but it's still definitely on the drawing board. Go ahead.
I just want to add something. Coley, you want to ask a question first?
Oh, thank you. I came in a few minutes late, so I apologize if this was covered. Are there income level requirements
No.
for coming to doorways?
No.
Anyone, it's just a matter of space?
Anybody that walks in the door.
With a referral.
With a
referral. With a
Yeah.
referral.
Yes. Yeah. Now, and what I was going to say is, to me, the whole miracle of this whole thing is the fact that the people who are volunteering, the people who are donating, live in the Richmond area, and they always, that's where most of the funds come from, and they can't stay there. So it really is such a Christian outpouring of generosity when you think about that. That they're not, no one's thinking about themselves. They're thinking about the general community and how they can help. And that's always warmed my heart. So I just wanted to say that.
And Dolly, have you had any luck getting a troop down to the doorways?
Yes, you're going to hear about this. Meredith said that she is planning to have residents here make sandwiches, lunch. Meredith, do you want to come up?
You want me to come up?
Yeah, come right here.
So yes, on December 13th, we will make sandwiches here and then take a trip to the doorways for a tour. So look in the Informer for more information, the upcoming Informer, so that it'll show how you can sign up, and we'll eat lunch here too after we make lunches. So it should be a great day on December 13th. Thank you.
I don't want to end on a down note because that was so positive, but it must have been horrible with COVID. And then when we're anticipating a surge after the holidays again, and it's a big issue here, a huge issue.
Yeah, absolutely. During COVID, clearly the hospital, they weren't doing a lot of elective surgeries. Even when they started back up, they weren't allowing visitors. So people weren't staying at the doorways. But even at the height of COVID, we probably still had 60 people every night that just couldn't go home, that they were in that type of treatment. But I have to say, our housekeeping team, our front desk team did an amazing job. I mean, as we all remember, it was scary times back then. We were doing all sorts of disinfecting and masks and gloves and HIPAA filters and all kind of UVC lights. The first time we actually had a guest who ended up being COVID positive. Again, the team handled it beautifully, and everybody was there every day. So it did definitely affect how we operated for many, many months. But now, again, it seems to be back to normal. Back in the day, if you had COVID, we asked you to check out. Now, again, sadly, sometimes it's just like having a cold. So we try to work with our guests and patients just to make sure that we're keeping everyone safe, but not, evicting anyone that still needs to be at the hospital. So we're hoping that, again, post-holidays, that we don't see that surge.
Any more questions? Yes.
I have a question. If somebody wanted to make a donation to your doorways, do you have an endowment fund, or do you just accept general donations? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. Yes, the question was how, if you want to make a donation, do we have an endowment fund or just operating funds? All of the above. Thank you for asking. You can go to our website. We do have an annual fund to just afford just general operations, and then we do have an endowment fund as well for our longer term goals. So yes, thank you for that question. It's great. We also have a fabulous fundraiser coming up in March. If any of you are foodies, it's called Savor. It's March 2nd at the Jefferson. And we have amazing chefs that come from really across the country. And it's 6 or 8 action stations during the silent auction, 3 plated courses with wine pairings, and then a live auction followed by a dessert extravaganza. You have to come hungry, or I'm always threatening to bring a doggy bag in my pocket because the food is amazing and you just can't possibly eat it all. I think last year actually I did bring a little Ziploc for some of the desserts at the end. I was trying to be sneaky. So all of that information is on our website at thedoorways.org.
Maybe Dolly could be our contact for finding out how to get an invitation and acceptance.
Yes.
You have to dress up a lot.
It is not black tie, but it's cocktail.
Yes.
Lovely.
I would love to dress up.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
We can't do what we do every day without our donors, our volunteers, our board of directors. It really makes it all possible, and our guests are so grateful. So thank you all for having us and for listening and just being our ambassadors. As you know, as you talk to people, the more people that know about us, the better.
And I want to thank you so much. You know, we're right here at Thanksgiving, and I think we're all asked to list why we're grateful and thankful, and certainly grateful in times like this that are so troubled, to have this hour where we heard of positive, generous acts by the entire community of Richmond. And thank you very much.
Thank you.